Hello, everybody. This is Mrs. Pound, and I am back with the last section in the last video for Chapter 3.1 on solutions. Our topic for today is going to be Section 315 on boiling point and freezing point. So our objectives today are going to be to describe how adding a solute decreases the freezing point of a solvent, explain how adding a solute elevates the boiling point of a solvent, and to infer how change in altitude affects boiling point. So the first thing we have to talk about is freezing point depression. This is the lowering of a solvent's freezing point by the addition of a solute. What this does is it prevents phase change, and in our area, we use this all the time during winter. This is the reason that we put salt on ice. Um, when we put the salt on ice, what it does is it actually lowers the freezing point of the ice so it stays liquid longer. What adding a solute does is it interferes with the interactions of the water molecules so that do not um, they do not freeze at higher temperatures. So it interferes with that. It keeps them in a liquid state at lower temperatures. And so when you add salt to the ice, um, it becomes a liquid because it will have to be at a lower temperature in order for it to freeze. So instead of freezing at, say, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it will freeze at -6 degrees Celsius or like in the 20s degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so that is why we add salt. We also use this when making ice cream. When you add salt to the ice around the ice cream in an ice cream maker, it will lower the temperature to about -6 degrees Celsius. And what this does is it allows for the cream and milk and everything else to freeze. If you try to make ice cream at 0 degrees Celsius, it just will not freeze correctly. And this is one thing I like to do in class, so we will be making ice cream in class to show this principle. The other thing that adding, say, salt or another solute to water does is it raises the boiling point. That's boiling point elevation. So this is the raising of a solvent's boiling point by the addition of a solute. So salt water, if you add salt to water, instead of boiling at, say, 100 degrees Celsius, it will boil at 104 degrees Celsius. And again, it basically it disrupts those interactions. It holds the water back from boiling because you have extra things in there. There's extra things to move. It has to get to a higher temperature in order for it to boil because you have that added solute. Now, another thing is a lot of times we add salt to water for pasta. And the reason for this is it takes more time to boil pasta at high altitudes because the water boils at a lower temperature, so the pasta does not cook as quickly. This has to do with vapor pressure. Okay, so you're at a higher altitude, you have less pressure from the atmosphere, atmospheric pressure pushing down on the water. Boiling has to do with atmospheric pressure. You have to get the vapor moving to a certain point where it is equal to the atmospheric pressure. Now, at lower altitudes, the atmospheric pressure is higher, so the vapor pressure must be higher for the water in order to boil. But when you're up at a higher altitude, there's less atmosphere above you pressing down, so the atmospheric pressure is less. The vapor pressure has to be less, so the water actually boils at a lower temperature. It does not boil at 100 degrees Celsius. And so it will take your pasta longer to cook. So, a way to counteract this is a person who lives at an altitude of 1,900 meters cooks pasta in a saltwater solution because the salt in the water elevates the boiling point so the pasta cooks hotter and faster. So, when you're at a lower uh, altitude, sometimes we add the salt to the pasta just to because we like the taste, really. But at higher altitudes, it's necessary so that your pasta will actually cook faster in order to do that. So that's freezing point, freezing point depression, and boiling point elevation. So our objectives today were to describe how adding a solute decreases the freezing point of a solvent, explain how adding a solute elevates the boiling point of a solvent, and infer how change in altitude affects boiling point. So don't forget your 5 questions, and this is the last video for this chapter. So you can start studying for your test. You have everything you need to study for that test.